Welcome to the Parties channel. Today, we explain Exodus chapter 32 in a clear and simple way, step by step. I am so thrilled to have you here for this explainer because what we are about to look at one of the most dramatic, pivotal, and frankly, shocking chapters in the entire Tanakh. Our goal today is to focus exclusively on the Peshat, meaning the simple, plain, literal meaning of the text. So no deep mystical tangents, no hidden Kabbalistic secrets, just exactly what the text tells us about who was there, what they did, and why they did it. All right, let's just dive right into this.
So first things first, let's get our bearings. Where exactly are we in the story? The Israelites have just miraculously escaped Egypt, right? They crossed the sea and they've arrived at Mount Sinai. Moses has gone up the mountain to receive the law directly from God. But he's been gone a while. He's been delayed on the mountain, and down in the camp, the Israelites are growing incredibly anxious. Think about it from their perspective. They are a newly freed people, totally alone in a harsh, unforgiving wilderness, and the one guy, the man who has been their visible lifeline to the divine, has seemingly just vanished.
So to unpack this chaos, we're going to walk through this entire chapter chronologically, verse by verse. We'll start with how the golden calf is actually built, then look at God's anger and Moses' reaction, the shattering of the tablets, his attempts at making excuses, the really heavy consequences that follow, and finally, we'll wrap up with the key life lessons we can take away from all of this. Okay, let's get into the first section, verses 1 through 6, where the crisis in the camp really boils over into action. This delay on the mountain, it is absolutely breaking the Israelites' fragile trust. Take a look at what they say in verse 1. The people gather around Aaron, who, remember, Moses left in charge, and they essentially demand new leadership. They demand a physical representation of the divine because they feel totally abandoned. Make us gods will go before us. Now, it's important to understand they aren't necessarily looking to completely replace the God of heaven right out of the gate. They are just terrified because this fellow Moses, the physical, tangible leader they could see, the guy who brought them out of Egypt, is gone. They want something they can see, touch, and follow in this scary wilderness. It's just a complete, massive failure of patience and faith. So, what does Aaron do when faced with this angry mob? Verse 2 tells us he actually complies. He tells them, take off the gold earrings that your wives, your sons, and your daughters are wearing and bring them to me. And the crazy part is, the people do it without hesitation. Aaron takes all this gold, and the text is very specific here. It says he fashions it with a tool and casts it into the shape of a calf. Once it's made, the people immediately proclaim, these are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt. Aaron sees this whole thing happening, and in verse 5, he tries to control the narrative by building an altar in front of the calf and announcing a festival to the Lord for the next day. But it doesn't work. By the next morning, the people rise early, offer sacrifices, sit down to eat and drink, and get up to indulge in wild revelry. Things have completely, utterly spiraled out of control. And honestly, this part of the text brilliantly illustrates the stark, almost tragic contrast taking place at this exact moment. Picture this. Up on the mountain, surrounded by the cloud, Moses is receiving the ultimate divine instruction, the stone tablets detailing how to live as a holy people. But meanwhile, down in the camp, the Israelites are indulging in revelry, literally breaking the very first commandments they had just agreed to. They are bowing down to a molten piece of metal while Moses is up there, completely unaware of the disaster unfolding below. Which brings us to verses 7 through 14. Moses might be unaware, but God certainly isn't. Up on the mountain, God suddenly interrupts the giving of the law. He tells Moses that the people have become corrupt. And listen to the phrasing God uses. Go down because your people, whom you brought up out of Egypt, have become corrupt. Do you catch that? God is saying your people, distancing himself from the Israelites in this moment of gross rebellion. And what's really fascinating is the specific word God uses in verse 9. He describes the Israelites as a stiff-necked people. Now, literally, this paints a picture of an animal, like a stubborn ox or a horse, that absolutely refuses to turn its neck to be guided by the reins. They are stubborn, they are unyielding, and they are refusing to obey. Because of this, God declares his intention to just destroy them entirely. He tells Moses, now leave me alone so that my anger may burn against them and that I may destroy them. Then I will make you into a great nation. Basically, God is offering to scrap the whole project and start over, using only Moses. But Moses, he does not take the offer. In fact, Moses immediately steps right in to mediate. He asks God a critical, probing question to try and turn away this fierce wrath. He says, O Lord, why should your anger burn against your people? Notice what Moses just did there. He takes God's phrasing and turns it right back around. He reminds God, no, these are your people, whom you brought out of Egypt with great power. From there, Moses masterfully builds his plea on three highly logical points, which we see in verses 11 through 13. First, he points to God's mighty rescue. He's essentially saying, why do all that work, all those miracles, just to destroy them out here? Second, he brings up God's reputation on the world stage. What will the Egyptians say? They're going to mock you. They'll say God led them into the mountains with evil intent just to wipe them off the face of the earth. And finally, and this is the big one, Moses calls upon the eternal promises God swore by his own self to Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. The promises to multiply their descendants and give them the land forever. And as a result of this incredibly bold, plain-spoken intercession from Moses, verse 14 tells us that God relents from bringing disaster upon the people. All right, moving into verses 15 through 20, Moses has saved them from immediate destruction, but now he has to actually go down and see this for himself. You see, God had already told Moses what was happening, sure, but hearing about it and actually seeing it, those are two very different things. The text really emphasizes what Moses is holding in his hands as he descends the mountain. He's carrying the physical covenant, the 2 tablets of the testimony. Verse 16 goes out of its way to highlight that these tablets were the direct work of God and the writing was the writing of God engraved right onto the stone. Now, as Moses approaches the camp, he hears a massive noise. Joshua, who is with him, actually mistakes it for the sound of war. But Moses corrects him. He says, no, that's not the sound of victory or defeat. It's the sound of singing. And when he finally gets close enough and he actually witnesses the golden calf and the wild dancing, his anger just absolutely ignites. And what he does next carries profound symbolic weight. Moses physically throws down and breaks the tablets to pieces at the foot of the mountain. Now, we have to understand, this isn't just a sudden temper tantrum. It is a powerful, highly visual demonstration of what the Israelites have literally just done. By worshiping that calf, they have shattered their covenant with God. So Moses shatters the physical record of that covenant right in front of their eyes. And he doesn't stop there. Moses takes immediate, extremely decisive action against the idol itself in verse 20. He systematically destroys that golden calf. First, he burns it in the fire. Then, he grinds it down to a fine powder. He scatters that powder on the water, and then he makes the Israelites drink it. Talk about a reality check. He ensures absolutely nothing is left of this idol. By making them ingest the very thing they falsely worshipped, he is proving, once and for all, its complete and utter powerlessness. Okay, so the calf is gone. Now we hit verses 21 through 24. It's time for Moses to figure out how this happened in the first place. With the idol destroyed, Moses turns his attention to Aaron. He demands an explanation. He asks him directly, what did these people do to you that you led them into such great sin? I mean, Moses is demanding accountability from the man he personally left in charge. And Aaron's response? It is frankly embarrassing. Aaron desperately tries to deflect the blame entirely onto the people. He tells Moses not to be angry, saying, hey, you know these people, they are prone to evil. Aaron recounts how they demanded gods and how he asked for their gold. But then, in verse 24, he comes up with one of the most famously weak excuses in the entire text. He completely minimizes his own active role in crafting the idol, saying, I threw it into the fire and out came this calf. Like it was magic. But we literally just read earlier in the chapter that Aaron personally fashioned it with a tool. In his panic and guilt, he tries to make it sound like this magical, spontaneous accident. Well, Moses doesn't even bother arguing with that because there's a much bigger problem at hand. Let's look at verses 25 through 35, the aftermath and the consequences. The calf might be destroyed, and Aaron has been confronted, but the rebellion in the camp, it's still a massive active threat. Verse 25 tells us that Moses saw the people were running wild. Aaron had let them get completely out of control, so much so that they had become a laughingstock to their enemies. Order has to be restored immediately, or this new nation is going to tear itself apart from the inside. So Moses stands at the entrance to the camp and issues a final, incredibly high-stakes ultimatum. He shouts, whoever is for the Lord, come to me. And the text tells us that all the Levites rally to Moses. What happens next is heavy. Moses gives them a terrifying command directly from the God of Israel. They are to take their swords, go back and forth through the camp, and execute the instigators of this massive rebellion. And they have to do it even if the guilty person is their own brother, friend, or neighbor. The Levites obey this agonizing command, resulting in about 3,000 deaths that day. It is a harsh, deeply sobering moment.
but it was a severe action taken to root out the core of the corruption and reestablish the absolute boundary of the covenant. After this, Moses tells the Levites they have been set apart to the Lord that day for their loyalty. The dust settles, but the relationship with God is still fractured. So the very next day, Moses returns to God. He tells the people, "You have committed a great sin, but I will go up and see if I can make atonement for you." Moses goes back up, and he doesn't make excuses like Aaron did. He flat out admits their terrible sin of making gods of gold. And then he offers the ultimate sacrifice. He says to God, "But now, please forgive their sin, but if not, then blot me out of the book you have written." This is a truly stunning moment. Blot me out of your book is a desperate plea to have one's own name completely erased from the record of life or existence. Moses is literally willing to forfeit his own life, his own eternity, if God will not forgive the people. I mean, he is acting as the ultimate intercessor. So how does God respond to that kind of offer? His response is just and it's measured. God replies that he will not blot Moses out. He says, "Whoever has sinned against me, that is who I will blot out of the book." God clarifies that there is individual accountability, only the guilty will be punished. True to his word, he strikes the people with a plague because of what they did with the calf, holding them accountable. But here is the crucial part. God does not abandon the mission. He instructs Moses, "Now go, lead the people to the place I spoke of, and my angel will go before you." The journey is going to continue. The promise made to the patriarchs remains intact, even through all of this intense discipline.
Wow. Okay, so that brings us to the final section of our explainer. We've gone through all the chronological events, but what does this plain text actually mean for us today? What can we learn?
Let's look at 3 key ideas we can pull right from this chapter. First, we clearly see the absolute danger of impatience and fear. The Israelites panicked simply because they had to wait. We see how a lack of patience, when it's coupled with a fear of the unknown, leads to disastrous, short-sighted choices. Second, the destructive power of mob mentality. Aaron was a leader, but he was overwhelmed by the crowd. When people let fear govern a group, they can easily convince themselves to do things they know are wrong, like bowing to a metal statue literally days after hearing the 10 Commandments. And third, we see the profound impact of courageous leadership and intercession. In stark contrast to Aaron, we learn the immense value of a leader like Moses, a leader who boldly confronts wrong, restores order, and passionately advocates for his people, even at great personal cost. So, this story really challenges all of us. Think about it. When the people around you panic and they let fear dictate their reality, what are you going to do? Will you bend to the demands of the crowd just to keep the peace, like Aaron? Or will you hold the line for the truth, even if it costs you everything, like Moses? Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.